Doesn't matter. Let's get the microphone.
I'm always curious.
Hold 1 second. Sorry, the microphone. Notice how it is difficult to contain the flow of the thought. Or not. Yes. Yeah, go on.
I'm curious about the one-sided thing that often seems to happen with the ATMs and the reason behind that, and if it's important which side you go with. And
So there's a few questions there. We'll go with which side you go with. If you can, you go with the side that the lesson is taught on, because usually there's a specific reason. So it's 50-50 chance, well, not. Most people, the majority of people are right-handed, more right-handed than left-handers. And even the left-handers, when they've done functional MRIs, they've shown that many of them are ambidextrous and they still use similar parts of the, or integrate the action in a similar way to right-handed people. Different lessons, often lessons have different structures. They can be do something on one side, do something on another side. They can be one-sided, dominant tendency to dominant side. There are some lessons that Moshe in particular designed for the dominant hand and dominant side. And in this lesson, working with the left side, it could be because, it's not, there's many possibilities, that our dominant side tends to be a little shorter and tighter because we use those habitual patterns more frequently. Commonly, not always, so these are not gross generalizations. The side that's not so caught in habits and ways of coordinating actions could be a little freer to learn something new or learn it in a different way than the other side. So often it's mixed up like that. One of the purposes for giving a one-sided lesson is to create a clearer contrast between the two. So you experience schizophrenia, literally, in a way. You know, one side is different. But then it depends on what your habits are, how that will manifest. Does that help enough for now? Answer enough for now? Anyone else got a comment that, yeah?
Just a
Question.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you mentioned that if, the majority of people are right-handed, but it doesn't matter. But in cases where it did matter, if it was better to use the less familiar side, would you indicate that to people? Because I'm left-handed, so like, do I just trust that I just keep doing the same side?
Yes, and you could do the lesson again on the other side.
Okay.
I could have taken that into account, but I think at this stage, the difference is still likely to be marked in terms of the contrast between the two sides, because the lesson is built in that, even though you're paying attention to both sides, because you're using yourself as a whole, more of your awareness is directed to your left side moving.
Because I found myself I wish that I was on the other side because I've got a lot of tightness on that side.
So I said at the beginning.
Yeah, I know you did, and then I thought, but it was like, it's better to, I just thought, because it's...
The instructions at the beginning are always the overriders.
Okay. Because you were sort of, I felt that it was, even though, if you have pain or something, do the other side. My interpretation was that it's preferable that you do remain on that same side, but if there's a problem, do the other. And it wasn't like a huge problem, but...
So it emerged during the lesson, your difficulty?
Yeah, it heightened. Yeah, it did. become more.
So it was difficult for you to lie on the right side.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult. It's just I could feel that tension on.
Anyone
that
else feel
area.
tension? That'll be universal.
All right. Okay.
So you're going to feel. You're likely to feel tension whichever side you do the lesson on,
Okay.
because our habits are so strong. We don't usually use our arms in their full range of possibilities, with their full range of degrees of freedom. So we are going to meet a quality that could have stickiness, could have tightness, could have you don't know how to integrate the rest of yourself, or it's not familiar to you, or things don't want to come along for the ride. That would be normal on either side.
But that familiar sort of uncomfortable feeling that's there already kind of gotten a little more heightened. So it's just whether that means that I really should have been on the other side, just so I wasn't so focused on that.
Could be. If you knew you have a difficulty or a recurrent issue, then I would say other side.
Okay, thank you.
It's a safer gamble. Unpredictable, can't always determine what's going to happen.
I like the way lying on that side there's a constraint of the floor, because if I didn't have the constraint of the floor, I wouldn't become so clear about the relationship between my left and my right side. So there's a relationship I'm aware of between my right shoulder and my left thigh. And I just got about a lot more information about how the rest of me relates to that part of my body, which was relatively unencumbered because it was on top. But I didn't just learn about my left or my right. I learned about the relationship between the major joint parts of my body and how they move in relation left across the midline. Yeah, because I had to stop because I was in pain too.
Did you still feel a difference between the two sides? A difference of some sort, and that wasn't just pain related?
No, it wasn't pain
Yeah.
related. It was the difference was, that's the dominant side,
Yeah.
and that's how much I have to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people are left-handed?
How many of those left-handers are ambidextrous? Or can do some things? Not necessarily right, but you could hit.
You're forced.
Yeah, that's right. So,
Yeah, I'm left-handed, and one of the things that's actually bothered me with a lot of the lessons, the recorded lessons that you can purchase, is that, you always do things on the right-hand side. So I've decided to be my usual bloody-minded left-handed self and to just ignore that and do them the opposite way if that's what feels better. And just understanding most people are right-handed, and that's how Moshe would have designed the lessons, and I need to go with what feels right for me.
many of the lessons are ambidextrous, so to speak. You could choose one side or the other. And some lessons are, more specifically stated. So I think that's great to explore, And I think Moshe was fairly idealistic and high-minded, and would expect people to go home and do the other side.
You say that,
You know?
do the other side.
Yeah. Or he would hope for the possibility that it would integrate spontaneously, which, there is a lot of that goes on. But if our habits are stronger than our nervous system's capacity to be free of those habits, then that can interfere with transferring the learning.
I can wait.
A question? Well, I was just going to show you what you're going to explore now. Okay, we'll see if it comes up if you need. Where's Ruth? Ruth, would you help me, please? What do you think? You could, could you sit behind him? Sure. You'll have another opportunity for a question in a moment. Okay. So, in a group of 3, you're going to explore different influences on someone's ability to move in one direction primarily. So you get clearer about that direction. You can expand it if there is time. First of all, you can both notice where the shoulder blade is sitting, where the shoulder is sitting relative to the ribs. Sometimes it's more forwards, sometimes it's more backwards, sometimes it's more downwards, sometimes it's upwards. No right, no wrong. It is reflecting the person's history and their use of themselves. So you look, this is a position that we ended up doing because it's a stable position. Now we could ask the person to move their shoulder forwards and backwards and just notice what's involved. Maybe slide forwards and backwards, notice what's involved. Okay, then Ruth, could you put your hands on there, so what's his name, Jenny?
Edward DeBono.
Edward. Edward. So now maybe we're just going to follow the movement, just get a sense of what's happening between the shoulder blade and the ribs. Maybe I want to, whoops, go to Bono. Okay, so that's the first part. Observe them doing the movement, follow their movement, and then you can find a way to support their arm. See if they can give you their weight. And here, because you're going to be moving, you need to work out how you're going to organize yourself so that you can move your pelvis and support their arm. Now, if it's really difficult for you to support their arm, you can use a roller, but the rollers will get in the way. If someone has pain, I wouldn't work with that side. Okay? Now, if you put your hands on the shoulder blade, on the edge of the shoulder blade, or you could find out where do you want to, maybe the inner border near the spine. Okay. Now I'm going to find a position, usually giving skeletal support at the end of the bones feels most safe to a person. And then I'm going to see, can I move, draw their arm this way and find out how they reach, while Ruth follows the shoulder blade. And you're going to explore the influence of different things. So first of all, you do take time to take the weight. Maybe for some people, this position's more comfortable. Sometimes it's rotated. You'll get a sense from when their arm is on the floor in front of them. Now, what happens if I just move my arms? What does that feel like? What participates? What happens if I think about using my pelvis? So that I'm not changing the configuration of my arms. My arms are moving because the movement's coming from my pelvis. And then explore what happens when you dislocate his hip. What happens with the legs folded? How does that influence the possibilities? Now, Ruth, maybe you want to see what happens elsewhere. So you could put a hand, ribs and shoulder. Great. And I'm feeling his clavicle move a little bit. Do you sense any movement in the clavicle? Uh-huh. Okay. And then we could try. So your experience from the ATM gives you a little understanding of the process. And then you see, What's it like for this? Whoa. He wants to turn as a whole there. Everything's rolling. Okay, then you can come back. That may or may not be the experience of the person you're exploring with. Or maybe, I wonder which direction is easier. Is it easier if maybe if he comes up here a little bit? So can I find, so you can begin to explore other trajectories, other directions, yeah? He likes this. Whee.
He does his foot.
Whole self. Okay, so take time to make yourself comfortable. Observe the person. You can use the tables.
My shoulder was going plump.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
That's really common. And because a lot of bones here, and there are a lot of muscles that are fairly flattish in their shape. You know, they're flat. But if the movement isn't distributed through the skeleton, and there's places where those muscles are continually holding, there'll be parts of the muscles that are contracted, you can get that feeling of riding over that can feel like bone, and it can be bone, that can be a certain timing of what's happening in the shoulder. So instead of continually changing the articulation in the shoulder joint, through the neuromuscular system, it can be part muscular, physical, the shape of the muscle, or it can be the timing of the parts and how they functionally connect that isn't going with the shape of the joint surfaces or the shape of the ribs. Other people notice clunking? Yeah. Crunching, clunking. It's a well-used area, this area, for most of us. Very rarely not to. Any questions about the process?
The person who is on the back is only
Side. It's on the side.
is only following, not pushing.
Yes.
Person on the back is only following.
On
not
the side. The
yeah, on
person
the side, yeah.
Person on the side. First, you're going to observe their movement. So they're going to be active.
Yeah, her role, yeah.
Following. Yes.
Only following.
Only
not
following.
Nothing.
I'm the active.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other? Mm-hmm.
We start watching, so they're active, and then they become completely passive.
As much as they can. Passive in terms of initiating the movement, but active in terms of attention and sensing themselves. And it is very difficult for many people to not help, to not contribute to the action. So it's the best you are able to do now. And what usually happens, if you can't stop helping now, you'll know how to help better. But if you take the time and a person feels safe with the support you're giving them in the motion, it is likely with further exploration and some pauses that the degree of helping will change. Mm-hmm.
And do we start off with legs long? Or
Start off with the knees at a right angle. Hips at a right angle, knees at a right angle.
on our left side?
On whichever side you like. Any other questions about the process? So you're going to each have a turn, being in each role, and you'll have about 10 minutes each. And then rotate. All right? So get together with 2 other people. If you're not sure about how to organize yourself or what's happening in the process, call Ruth, or Jenny, or Lisa over. Okay?